what do you see? And Marcel, same question, man. What do y'all see as really the future of getting that representation matters moments to
we're back
forefront for us as African Americans? Like what's the next evolution of this of getting that representation matters moment to the forefront?
Go ahead, Lee.
No, I went first last time. It's all you.
and that's a super big question, right? Because I mean, you know, like what I appreciate, and I'll give you my answer. What I appreciate the most are these moments. Lee, you've done an awesome job of shouting out a lot of Black comic book creators and content creators. Marcel, you're in that same vein of being a comic book writer. I mean, to me, that's the space, right? Of getting, not necessarily getting these artists to the mainstream, but getting more of our artists into the hands of our kids. I'm a father. I have 2 boys. Lee, you have a little baby girl. Mm-hmm. Carrie, you have a son. I love to be able to get less Superman in their hands.
What you talking about?
I thought what he was going to say.
No, I mean, you know, I'd love to get less Superman in their hands and more stories that depict something that they can see, feel, and touch.
Now,
to me, that's the next evolution.
Let me qualify even further what Jeff says. So my son thinks that the center of the MCU is Black Panther because I've raised him that way, right? So he does not go like, oh, Captain America and Iron Man are the main heroes of the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been like, no. This whole thing is built on Miles Morales as Spider-Man and Black Panther, right? Nothing else happens. I mean, you saw Miles Morales defeated the Spider-Verse, right? Black Panther saved the world and held the line in Infinity War. I've reframed this for him, right? Because I don't want him to grow up in a space that's like, yeah, I think it's about a rich white guy can kind of save the world at the end of the day. And I mean, Tony Stark saved the world, but I'm worried about some of the parallels that he draws from that, right? That Captain America needs drugs to get big and beefy and like save the world, right? I don't know that that's the narrative.
Black Panther does too.
But no, so Black Panther did it for the culture, though, right?
So you're changing the rules for Black Panther.
He had to save his homeland.
Taking herbs for the culture.
According to the movie, he had to save his homeland, right? He did anything to save his family, right? Miles Morales was a kid that got endued with these powers and then had to find his own way. And wearing J's, I think, is a perfect way to kind of go about this.
Not J's, ones.
Right. So I gotta give him this where I'm like, yeah, my kid is gonna think this is how the MCU started and then go from there. Yeah. Right.
Okay. So to Jeff's question, I actually did a poll in a Facebook group a couple of days ago because I recently made the decision to pivot more so from doing comics, like, you know, online comics and trying to sell comics in like stores and conventions, doing more so cartoons. Like I'm going to be trying to do cartoon shorts on YouTube and here on Facebook. Just because I feel that it would be easier, and I use that word loosely. Well, like, let me not even say easier. It would be less of a demanding challenge to make money off of my stories by doing it in a cartoon format, just because of how much easier it is to monetize video on the internet, which is like the main way to distribute nowadays, you know, in the era of e-commerce and all this other stuff. So I've decided to pivot to that. I had already made my mind up, but I just wanted to do a quick poll in this Black comic creator group on Facebook just to see how people were feeling about stuff. I was like, if you had a choice, if you were going to make a comic book or a cartoon, which one would you do? there are some people who are trying to be like smart. It's like, just do both, bro. And it's like, well, yeah, that's a good idea. But clearly I'm asking because I actually am limited on my choices. I can't just do both. And so I'm trying to choose here. But a lot of people were saying they would kind of just want to do comics. And it was because it's just they love comics like myself. I wanted to keep doing my comic. It took me a while to make this decision. It's just because we've somewhat romanticized the idea of making a comic book, selling it. It's just that process is so pure to us that we don't want to do anything else. And it sounds like people aren't really prioritizing making their business profitable. Even the people who like say it's like, oh, you should do like a cartoon, they say, but it's like way too expensive to do that. You'd have to get a whole team together. And it's really not all that, because if you keep it simple, it's possible to do it under a budget, just like if you were going to do a comic book. But it seems like a lot of people have put up these sort of, they built up these things in their minds to where it makes it seem like it's impossible. It's an impossible, like an unachievable goal, unless you have so much financial backing or a whole team. And it's too much, because a lot of these people in the group are like, around my age, and they're late 20s, mid 20s, 30s, 40s, and they're just not looking at it from like, oh, well, let's make this profitable. Like, let's exchange some ideas so we can all have our stories successful, put them in the hands of other Black families so these children can have role models or all that other good stuff. And it just seems like more so just a lot of this label from Addams Family came to mind, shiftless dreamers. Like, a lot of people just in love with the idea of making and telling stories, but not a lot of people really trying to like move towards an actual successful business and building something. There's like a couple. There's the guy running Black Sands Publishing. He has a pretty good business model. He's got people investing in his whole business. Like, I think he's distributing stocks. Like, he's trying to go like public and stuff like that. He's really trying to make it a real company. And we need more people like that who are just more so not just about the creative engine, but more so about the business engine. The next step to go back to your question, I think will be when we get more organized as creators, and we're not just creators no more, but we're actually businessmen and women who are actually taking initiative to not put up, oh, well, I can't do it because of this, or I can't do it because of that. Like, I can't tell you how many times I told people, well, they were like, well, I can't do a comic because, this and that. I'm like, well, what if you just do these things instead? They're like, oh, well, yeah, I guess I could. Or it's like, I can't do a cartoon because of this or that. I'm like, well, what if you just do these things? It's like, well, yeah, but there's this. I'm like, well, that thing actually doesn't matter because you could do it like this. They're like, oh, well, yeah, I guess I could. But I couldn't land on an idea if I really wanted to. It's like so many imagined blocks and barricades in their minds that we as creatives, but shit, Black and white, as far as indies, need to be able to overcome so that, yeah, these new stories can start to rise up and take place of these characters who have been around since the 1960s. You run into a lot of problems narratively when everything is put behind characters who come from a different era and a different time. They're not made for these current sensibilities. And that's when you get all these pushback from these people who grew up with these characters. It's like, well, like, cause even I'll tell you straight up, when they made Kid Flash Black, like on the Flash TV show, I was like, that's not Bart Allen. That's not Bart Allen. That's not Wally West. Like, I grew up with Wally West being like on the Justice League show. He's a white guy. There's nothing wrong with that to me. I like the idea of that's Wally West. I get why you have a Black Wally West in the modern show, because you need representation. You need to have a more diverse cast, create more opportunities for Black actors, all these other good things. But this is the problems you run into when you're banking too much on characters from a different time. The indie creators need to get more organized, rise up, so we can actually start having real, genuine roles. You don't have to whitewash or, I forget what the other word is for making someone Black or a person of color who wasn't actually a person of color. But you need these more unique individual, you know, indie titles to get more organized.
You need more storytellers.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
We need more businessmen who are storytellers. We need more businessmen.
Come on, Benny, man. The kid is a L7 weenie.